Grace by Linda Cummings. I thought I saw judgment coming in the distance like a red storm, and I hid from God. But it was grace in a hushed red sunset lazing on the horizon for my pleasure. The Lord and I see red different. I look at the sky with half an idea of a raging poem, and he sees a finished symphony. The struggle to see, is it danger or the softness of the summer night? If I were blind, I might hear it better than I see it.
It wasn't much fun, but the only one to whimper was Sam McGee. And that very night, as we lay packed tight in our robes beneath the snow, and the dogs were fed, and the stars overhead were dancing heel and toe, he turned to me and said, "Cap," said he, "I'll cash in this trip, I guess. And if I do, I'm asking you won't refuse my last request." He seemed so low that I couldn't say no. And he says with a sort of moan, "It's accursed gold. It's got right hold till I'm chilled clear through to the bone. Yet 'tain't being dead, it's my awful dread of that icy grave that pains. So if you swear that foul or fair, you'll cremate my last remains. A pal's last need is a thing to heed, so I swore I would not fail. And we started on at the streak of dawn, but God, he looked ghostly pale. He crouched on the sleigh, and he raved all day of his home in Tennessee. And before nightfall, a corpse was all that was left of Sam McGee. There wasn't a breath in that land of death, and I hurried, horror-driven, with a corpse half hid, and I couldn't get rid because of a promise given. It was lashed to the sleigh, and it seemed to say, "You may tax your brawn and brains, but you promised true, and it's up to you to cremate these last remains." Now a promise made is a debt unpaid, and a trail of its own stern cold. In the days to come, though my lips were numb, and my heart how I cursed that load, in the long, long night by the lonesome firelight, with the huskies round in a ring, hauling out their woes to the homeless snows. Oh God, I loathe the thing. And every day the quiet clay seemed to heavy and heavier grow. And on I went, and though the dogs were spat and the grub was running low. The trails were bad, and I felt half mad, but I swore I could not give in. And I often sang to that hateful thing, and it hearkened with a grin, till I came to the marge on like a barge, and a derelict there lay. It was jammed in the ice, and I saw in a thrace. It was called Alice May. And I looked at it, and I thought a bit, and I looked at my frozen chum. Then here, said I, with a sudden cry, is my crematorium. Some planks I tore from the cabin floor, and I lit the boiler fire. Some coals I found that were laying around, and I heaped the fuel higher. The flames just soared, and the furnace roared, such a blaze that you seldom see. And I'm burrowing a hole in the glowing coal, and I stuffed in Sam McGee. and I made for a hike, for I didn't like to hear him sizzle so, and the heavens scowled, and the huskies howled, and the winds began to blow. It was an icy cold, but the hot sweat rolled down my cheeks. I don't know why. And the greasy smoke in the inky cloak went streaking down the sky. I do not know how long in the snow I wrestled with grisly fear, but the stars came out and they danced the air again, and I ventured near. I was sick with dread, but I bravely said, I'll take a peek inside. I guess he cooked, and it's time I looked, and the door I opened wide. And there sat Sam, looking cold and calm in the heart of the furnace roar, and he wore a smile that could see a mile, and he said, please close the door. It's fine in here, but I greatly fear you'll let in the cold and storm, and since I left Plumtree down in Tennessee, it's the first time I've been warm. There are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge on Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee. Robert W. Service. The shooting of Dan McGrew. A bunch of the boys were whooping it up in the Malamute saloon. The kid that handled the music box was hitting a jag-time tune. Back of the bar in a solo game sat Dangerous Dan McGrew, watching his luck, his light of love, the lady known as Lou. One out of the night, which was 50 below, and into the dim and the glare, there stumbled a miner, fresh from the creeks, dog dirty, and loaded for bear. He looked like a man with a foot in the grave, and scarcely the strength of a louse. Yet he tilted a poke of dust on the bar, and he called for drinks for the house. There was none could place a stranger's face as we searched ourselves for a clue, but we drank to his health, and the last to drink was Dangerous Dan McGrew. Their men somehow just gripped their eyes and hold them hard like a spell, and such was he, as he looked to me like a man who had lived in hell, with a face most hair and the deadly stare of a dog whose day is done. And he watered the green stuff in his face, and the drops fell one by one. I got to figuring who he was, and wondered what he would do. And I turned my head, and watching him was a lady known as Lou. His eyes went rubbering around the room, and he seemed in kind of a daze, till at last the old piano fell in the way of his wandering gaze. The ragtime kid was having a drink. There was no one else on the stool, so the stranger stumbled across the room and flopped down there like a fool. in a buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt. He sat and I saw him sway, and he clutched the keys with his talon hands. Oh my God, that man could play. Were you ever out in the great alone when the moon was awful clear, and the icy mountains hemmed you in with a silence you could hear, and only the howl of a timber wolf when you camped there in the cold, a half-dead thing in a stark dead world, clean mad for the muck called gold, while high overhead, green, yellow, and red, north lights swept in bars, you had a hunch what the music meant, hunger in the night and the stars, and hunger not of the belly kind that banished with bacon and beans, but gnawing hunger of lonely men for a home and all it means, for a fireside far from the cares that are four walls and a roof above, but oh, so crammed with cozy joy and crowned with a woman's love. A woman dearer than all the world and true as heaven is true. God, how ghastly she looked through her rouge. A woman known as Lou. Then, on a sudden, the music changed so soft you could scarcely hear. But you felt your life had been looted clean of all it once held dear. That someone had stolen the woman you loved, and that her love was a devil's lie, and that your guts were gone, the best for you was to crawl away and die. It was a crowning cry of a heart's despair, and it thrilled you through and through. I guess I made it spread misery, said Dangerous Dan McGrew. The music almost died away, then it burst like a pent-up flood. But it seemed to say, repay, repay, and my eyes were blind with blood. The thought came back of an ancient wrong and stung like a frozen lash, and the lust awoke to kill, and the music stopped with a crash. And the stranger turned, and his eyes they burned in a most particular way, and his buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt, he sat and I saw him sway, and his lips went through kind of grin, and he spoke and his voice was calm, and boys, he said, you don't know me, and none of you care a damn, but I want to state that my words are straight, and I bet my poke they're true, and that one of you is a hound of hell, and that one is Dan McGrew. So I ducked my head, and the lights went out, and two guns blazed in the dark, and a woman screamed when the lights went up. Two men lay stiff and stark. Pitched on his head, and pumped full of lead, was Dangerous Dan McGrew, while the man from the creek lay clutched to the breast of the lady known as Lou. There are simple facts of this case I guess I ought to know. They say that the stranger was crazed with hooch, and I'm not denying it so. I'm not so wise as those lawyer guys, but strictly between us two, the lady that kissed him and pinched his poke was a lady known as Lou. Robert W. Sir. The face on the barroom floor. 'Twas a balmy summer evening, and a goodly crowd was there, which well nigh filled Joe's barroom on the corner of the square, as songs and witty stories came through the open door. A vagabond crept slowly in and paused upon the floor. "Where did it come from?" someone said. "The wind is blowing it in." "What does it want?" another cried. "Some whiskey, rum, or gin?" "Here, Toby, sick him. See if your stomach's equal to the work." "I wouldn't touch him with a fork. He's filthy as a Turk." The bandage the poor wretch took was Stout's good grace. In fact, he smiled as though he thought he had struck the proper place. "Come, boys, I know there's burly hearts among so good a crowd. To be in such good company would make a deacon proud. Give me a drink, that's what I want. I'm out of funds, you know. When I had cash to treat the gang, this hand was never slow." "What, you laugh as though you thought this pocket never hold a sou? I was once as fixed as well, my boys, as any one of you." "There, thanks, that braced me nicely. God bless you one and all. Next time I pass this good saloon, I'll make another call. Give you a song? No, I can't do that. My singing days are past. My voice is cracked, my throat's worn out, and my lungs are going fast. Say, give me another whiskey. I promise I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tell you a funny story, and a fact I promise too. That I was ever a decent man, not one of you would think. But I was, some 4 or 5 years back. Say, give me another drink. Fill her up, Joe. I want to put some life into my frame. Such little drinks to a bum like me are miserably tame. 5 fingers there, that's the scheme. And cork and whiskey, too. Well, here, boys. Here's luck, boys. And landlord, my best regards to you. You treat me pretty kindly, and I'd like to tell you how. I came to be the dirty sot you see before you now. As I told you once, I was a man with muscles, frame, and health, but for a blunder ought to have made considerable wealth. I was a painter, not one that dabs on bricks and wood, but an artist, and for my age was rated pretty good. I worked hard at my canvas and was bidding fair to rise, for gradually I saw the star of fame before my eyes. I made a picture, perhaps you've seen. 'Tis called The Chase of Fame. It brought me £1,500 and added to my name. Then I met a woman, and now becomes the funny part, with eyes that petrified my brain and sunk into my heart. Why don't you laugh? 'Tis funny that the vagabond you see could ever love a woman and expect her to love me. But 'twas so. For a month or so her smiles were freely given, and when her lovely lips touched mine, it carried me to heaven. Do you see a woman for whom your soul you would give, with a form like Milo Venus, too beautiful to live, with eyes that would beat the Kukrai Moor, and a wealth of chestnut hair? If so, 'twas she, for there never was another half as fair. I was working on a portrait one afternoon in May of a fair-haired boy, a friend of mine, who lived across the way. And Madeline admired it, and much to my surprise, said that she would like to know the man that had such dreamy eyes. It didn't take long to know him, and before the month had flown, my friend had stolen my darling, and I was left alone. And ere a year of misery has passed above my head, the jewel I had treasured so had tarnished and was dead. And that's why I took to drink, boys, for I never saw you smile. I thought you'd be amused and laughing all the while. What's the matter, friend? There's a teardrop in your eye. Come laugh with me, 'tis only babes and women that should cry. Say, boys, if you give me another whiskey, I'll be glad. I'll draw right here a picture of that face that drove me mad. Give me that piece of chalk with which you mark the baseball score. You shall see the lovely Madeline upon the barroom floor. Another drink, and with chalk in hand, the vagabond began to sketch a face that well might buy the soul of any man. Then, as he placed another lock upon the shapely head, with a fearful shriek, he leaped and fell across the picture, dead. U.A. the Archer.
Whispering Bill. So you're running for Congress, mister. Let me tell you about my son. Might make you fellows carefuler down there in Washington. He clings to his rifle and uniform. Folks call him Whispering Bill. But I'll tell you, the war ain't over yet up here on Broman Hill. The dooryard is his battlefield. Let's see, he's nigh 16 when Sumter fell, and as likely a boy as this world has seen. And what with the news, battles lost, and the speeches, and all the noise, I guess every farm in the neighborhood lost part of its crop of boys. 'Twas harvest time when Bill left home. Every stalk in the field of rye seemed to stand tiptoe to see him off and wave him a fond goodbye. His sweetheart was there with some other gals, a sassy little miss, and pretending she wanted to whisper his ear, she gave him a rousing kiss. And he was a handsome feller, tender, brave, and smart. And though he was bigger than I was, the boy had a woman's heart. I can't control my feelings, but I tried with all my might, and his mother and me stood a-crying till Bill was out of sight. His mother, she often told him, when she knew he was going away, that God would take care of him, maybe if he didn't forget to pray. On the bloodiest battlefield, when the bullets whizzed in the air, Bill was a fighting desperate. He used to whisper a prayer. Oh, his comrades often told me that Bill never flinched a bit when every second gap in the ranks told where a ball had hit. One night when the field was covered with the awful harvest of war, they found my boy amongst the martyrs of the cause he was fighting for. His fingers were clutching in the dewy grass. Oh no, sir, he wasn't dead. But he laid kind of helpless and crazy with a rifle ball in his head. As he trembled with battle fear, he lay there in the dew, and he whispered as he tried to rise, "God will take care of you." An officer wrote and told us how the boy had been hurt in the fight, but he said the doctors reckoned they could bring him around all right. And then we heard from a neighbor disabled at Marvin Hill that he thought in the course of a week or so he'd be coming home with Bill. We were anxious to see him. We sat up and talked all night till the break of day had dimmed the stars and put out the northern lights. We waited and watched for a month or more. The summer was nearly past when a letter came one day that said they started for home at last. I'll never forget the day Bill came. It was harvest time again, and the air blowed over the yellow fields was sweet with the scent of grain. The dooryard was full of neighbors who had come to share our joy, and all of us set up a mighty cheer at the sight of that soldier boy. All of a sudden someone said, "My God, don't the boy know his mother?" And Bill stood a whispering, fearful like, and staring from one to another. "Don't be afraid, Bill," he said to himself as he stood in his coat of blue. "My God will take care of you, Bill. God will take care of you." He seemed to be loading and firing a gun, and to act like a man who hears, the awful roar of the battlefield sounding in his ears. 10,000 ghosts that bloody day was marching through his brain, and his feet, they kind of picked their way as though they'd felt the slain. And I grabbed his hand, and I said to Bill, "Don't you remember me? I'm your father. Don't you know me?" How frightened he seemed to be. But the boy kept on whispering to himself, as if it was all he knew. "God will take care of you, Bill. God will take care of you." He's never known us since that day, nor a sweetheart, nor never will. Father, mother, or sweetheart, they're all the same to Bill. And he groans like a wounded soldier, sometimes the whole night through. And we soothe his head and say, "Yes, Bill, he'll surely take care of you. You can stop a war in a minute, but when can you stop the groans? For you broke our heart and sapped our blood and plucked away our bones. And you filled our souls with bitterness that goes from sire to son. So you best be kind of careful down there in Washington." Hurrying back.
Shuttle Columbia, second try. The sky brightened, clouds dark to the south. Crowds waiting patiently in the searing Florida sun. Brakes screeching to see what would it be. People pointing at the shuttle site far across the river. A sudden lightning strike not so far away. Countdown hastened to make the small chance a go. A cloud of white puffy smoke, a burst of fire. Up, up, trailing the rolling smoke with a sonic blast, then two. A beautiful launch, if only the lightning hadn't gotten the man on the roof in Coco, by Janet Cummings. Now I shall record Kevorkian, which Matt hates. And I keep finding these missing, and I never can find them, and I don't know where they go. I think they get thrown away. Kevorkian. A plot of sinister destruction to quiet the weak. Hope may be lost in life, but God do we trust? Only He has a say to take one's final breath away. Doctors may lessen the pain, or heal if they can, or only maintain. No man is balanced enough to be able to say, this one shall live, take that one away. It is only a step from weak to old or infirm. Could be your life, or one of your best friends. No Social Security, less taxes, you see. We must remember what is done to one can be done to the rest. Let God be the power.